and welcome back to our podcast. I'm the Disturbed Southern Belle.
And I'm the gentleman.
We're continuing our series of some of the most disturbing media, and this episode is going to be, of course, no different. It's going to be a lovely movie that I myself have actually seen, and it is pretty twisted, and it is called Idyllic. Now, this movie is a 2008 British horror thriller movie that follows this young couple that are basically going to this remote lake. And then while they're there, they're confronted and basically, we'll just say tormented by a group of hostile young, teenagers-ish age kids. So, let's kick this off. So it starts off, and it's the couple, and it's Jenny and her boyfriend, Steve. And so they decide to head out for this weekend getaway at Eden Lake, which is this remote location that's in the English countryside. So as they're driving to the location, Steve starts complaining about how he sees that young people today are often very antisocial. You know, they're mean, they're cruel. You know, they're not like normal people would be in society should be.
Yeah.
And he blames the parents for this. And in some cases, I'm sure that could be true. Now, not always. I think some depends on the children, but it can be very true. They pick up what they see at home. So they discuss this as they're driving or whatever. Now, they get to their destination, and for a while, everything's going okay. However, their getaway is soon disrupted by this gang of rowdy teenagers who are led by this, we'll just call him what he is, a psychopathic boy whose name is Brett. Now, the group, they eventually go on and leave them alone. However, the next morning, Jenny and Steve go to look at their food, and they find that it's been a bunch of insects put in it. And it was sealed up, and it shouldn't have happened, basically. So they figure it was them that did it. But they don't really have any proof, but, they assume it was them. So they then go to a local town, to a restaurant there. And while they're there, they're just basically kind of discussing what happened with this waitress that's working there. And then she asks, what the kids look like or whatever. So he describes the group to the waitress, who insists that, she basically says that her children are part of that group and they would never do that. She knows better, that they're just basically full of crap. So, of course, they would never harass anyone. So, as they're going back, Steve sees this house that he believes belongs to one of the members or whatever. So he's going to sneak into it. Now, while he's in there looking around, he's hoping to find some info or find something on him or whatever. He ends up hearing the owner of the house come in, and he manages to get out before, and the man's name is John. He manages to get away before he finds him. So the couple then just go on and they go back to the lake. Later on, they go back, and then after a while, they go back to check their car, and they discover that their car and all the belongings they'd left in it had been stolen.
Well, that ain't good.
No. So now they're on foot as of right now. So they decide to return to the nearby town on foot, and as they're walking, they narrowly avoid being ran over by Brett, who's driving the stolen car. So,
well, all right then.
That's a shocker, I know. Who would have ever saw him stealing that car, right? So they then continue on, and they get basically no help in town or whatever. So they start heading back to the camping area, hoping they might run across them again or find the car. So as they're going through the woods, they end up finding Brett and his friends. Now, as you can imagine, Steve is upset because they stole his car and all their stuff.
Enough.
So he starts threatening them.
Understandable.
Right. He begins to threaten them. So while he does this, a few of the members start pulling out knives and whatever, and then they all start scuffling. So during the scuffle, Brett, who has a dog there with him, and the dog ends up getting stabbed. It wasn't meant to be. It was just a bunch of chaos. The dog's jumping up, whatever, and the dog accidentally gets stabbed and killed, which sends Brett into a rage. So Jenny and Steve, they manage to get back to the stolen car, and they start trying to drive away and flee. However, the gang ends up causing them to crash the car, and it causes Steve to get trapped inside the damaged car, and he can't get out. The group comes up on him. Jenny has no choice, so she jumps out and runs out, to get away because they're going to get both of them, and she has to abandon him for a moment. So Steve ends up being captured by the group of teenagers. And then it's still nighttime, so she can't see anything, so she don't know where they took him. So at dawn the next morning, she starts looking for him, and she finds the group, and she witnessed them tying Steve to a rock using barbed wire, because, that's just what you do. Brett then orders the members of the gang each one of them to stab Steve at least once. That way, if they go down, they're all guilty.
Well, all right then.
So, psychopath, is this a big enough word to describe this kid?
No.
So there's only one female member of the gang, and it's a teenage girl named Paige, and she's also recording the torture basically taking place on her phone because, you don't want a record of it. I mean, you'd want to go back and rewatch this, of course, right? So Jenny manages to cause a distraction that makes them run away for a moment and, leave for just a little bit. And it allows Steve to also free himself. Basically, she kind of takes off running. They chase after her. Steve manages to get away, and she kind of shakes them for a minute, gets back to Steve. However, she sees he's hurt, so she can't really do much for him right then. So she knows she's going to have to leave him and try to go find help because she has nothing. She has no supplies, really. They didn't really have any first aid stuff with them, nothing. So she goes off and is just trying to find help. So while she's going off to try to get assistance, she happens upon this young boy named Adam, and he tells the gang where she's hiding. She runs and hides, and then the gang is chasing her, and then they find her or find Adam. And Adam's like, oh, well, she's over there, because, why wouldn't he? This leads the group, of course, to be able to locate and capture Jenny, and they force her back to where they'd left Steve in the woods. And she discovers that while they were gone, he's succumbed to his wounds because he's pretty much, in bad shape anyway. The group then take her and Steve's body and tie it to a piece of wood, a pile of wood, because, you can probably imagine why.
I'm assuming they're going to torch them.
Yep. Again, Paige is over here filming everything on her phone because, like I said, you got to have a record of this stuff because what's the point of doing it, right? So as they're all surrounding them, Brett, then the young boy Adam, he ends up going back with them, and he's going to make him do it. So he's going to make him set fire to him, and he starts to do this, but Jenny manages to get away before he can do it, and this just enrages Brett. So Brett then takes this tire he's found and soaks it in gasoline. He places it over Adam, which pins his arms down to his side and sets the tire on fire. And, well, you can imagine what happens.
Yeah.
So, during Jenny's attempt to escape, she accidentally runs into this young boy who's named Cooper. Now, he is actually one of the teenagers, and he really didn't want to be involved in all the stuff that was going on. He was actually trying to help her, and she accidentally happened up on him, and she didn't realize that he was trying to help her, and she accidentally kills him because, he was with them. So, but he had actually been trying to help her. So, Brett and the remaining members of the gang, they start pursuing Jenny after what they've done to Adam. Of course, they had to let that play out. So they take off after Jenny, and then they happen upon Cooper's body. So, now this is... Brett is infuriated that this boy, his gang member, has been killed, which leads him to begin to furiously beat another member of the gang who had literally nothing to do with it, and the boy ends up dying from the injuries that Brett inflicts upon him. So that makes what? You're mad because one of your members get killed, so you beat another one to death? But sure. Now, Paige is seeing all this unfold. She's seeing Brett get more and more unhinged, and now he's turning on members of the gang, so she just takes off, flees in fear.
Fair enough.
Yep. I can't really say that I'm not laughing. Can't say that I blame her. I think I'd be ready to nope it out of there myself.
Yeah.
So Jenny makes it to this nearby road, and she kind of runs out in the road in front of this car, or van rather, and it forces it to stop. So the guy jumps out of the car or van or whatever, and he's talking to her or whatever, and tells her basically he's kind of looking for his brother, and she ends up finding out that he's the older brother of the boy that she'd accidentally killed, Cooper. She doesn't tell him per se that she did it, but she manages to get in the van and she steals it. So she starts speeding away. Now, while she's driving away, Paige runs out in the road and she just runs her over and just keeps going. It's not funny, but I don't know that I blame her at this point. I mean, to be honest, because she doesn't even know what's going on. She just ends up running over, keeps going.
Also, beyond that, she also had a hand in killing the guy, so...
Yeah, in a way, but anyway. So... Now, of course, as you can imagine, getting hit with a car at a high rate of speed is not a good thing, so Paige, of course, ends up passing away as well. So Jenny continues on, and she's driving erratically, and she makes it back to the town where they were at, but she ends up crashing the van into this backyard where there's this backyard party taking place, and she ends up crashing up into the backyard. So she gets knocked unconscious during the crash, and she later awakens inside the house. And when she wakes up, she's being confronted by this man, or this woman rather, and John, who was the man from earlier where Steve had broken into the house, looking for information on the gang. So soon after, Brett returns, and he begins to notify other people at the party about the dead members of the gang, who are all children of party members that are there. So you can see this is playing out well, right?
Yeah.
Jenny then realizes that she's in Brett's house. So she knows, I've got nowhere to go. I've got nowhere to hide. So she manages to jump up, and she runs into a nearby bathroom, and she locks the door, hoping to, for some protection. John, of course, then goes over and kicks in the door of the bathroom, which leaves Jenny, completely defenseless. Brett tells John that Jenny and Steve had murdered all the other gang members, as well as his beloved dog.
Uh-huh.
So Jenny denies this, of course, and pleads with John, to believe her, she didn't do this, and tries to tell him what had happened. Of course, John doesn't believe Jenny's side of the story, and then he, along with 2 other men present at the party, then basically just begin to violently attack Jenny in retaliation for her supposed attacks. So while this is happening, Brett just goes off to his room, closes the door so he can block off the noises of hearing her screaming in the next rooms. And he then takes out Paige's phone, which we're assuming that he got from her body, you know what I'm saying, and starts deleting all the videos of their actions. And the movie then closes, showing him staring blankly into a mirror with this just no expression face while wearing Steve's sunglasses.
Well, all right then.
So, yeah. Now, that's another one of the ones where nobody ends up getting out all right. Now, the only thing I can assume in some of this is maybe the other kids weren't as bad and they were following Brett to a point, and maybe the parents just didn't realize what they were doing. You get what I'm saying? Because he's deleting those photos, so obviously he doesn't want his dad and parents to know, So it's kind of making me think maybe the parents don't really realize what's going on, and they think that, these people just came in and killed their kids. So I'm not saying the parents are completely psychotic, but at the same time, they
should have at least heard her out.
Didn't even question anything.
Yeah.
Didn't go look to see the kid. Didn't try to find out anything, and just immediately attack. And well, we can assume what happens. It doesn't ever show what happens to her, but you can probably assume what's going to end up happening to her.
I think it's a safe assumption that she dies.
Exactly. So yeah, it's pretty sad movie, in the big aspect of things, because it's just, they happen upon this group, and Brett is just a complete psychopath. I mean, he just is.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying he's wrong for being upset that his dog got stabbed, but at the same time, why is he out here doing the stuff he's doing to instigate any of these situations? He's instigating the whole thing. None of this would have even happened had he just left them alone. They weren't bothering them. But anyway, we hope you enjoyed that segment. We're going to be continuing on with a few more of some disturbing movies. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. And don't forget to stay disturbed.